Okay, so this is our group activity. So we can identify 3 or 4 areas that we can focus on. So it looks like number one, the biggest cluster is 11, establish a standardized skill framework, create the taxonomy.
So I think what's interesting about the start with why, part of it is, it's so unique to the organization. So, as I mentioned with GE Digital, our why was what are the skills that we actually need in order to be a software organization?
I would say really was at CNA was I was tasked with standing up that organization, that department, and really it was all about the supporting of organizational goals. So understanding strategic goals and objectives of the organization was super important. So we really need to take a harder look at the skills that we had currently, but also how could we position ourselves? How could we position the organization to pivot in the midst of changes within the industry, changes, within the insurance environment? And that's one of the key reasons as to why that effort was a shoo-in, to complement other organizational initiatives.
Marianne, could you share where you're starting is understanding the skills of the people and the talent you have for staffing? What's the why for starting at CDW to understand the skills of the people of your talent?
I think my response really comes from one, what's going on at CDW, and then in my mind, the experience that we had when I was at Accenture many moons ago. Yes, we need to know what the skills are so we can staff them, etc. But I was like, well, I also need to know what skills are out there so that we can be more intentional on where do we need to train people. Who are the folks who have adjacent skills, right? So I'm not starting from scratch. And I may have some folks in the West Coast, but I really need folks in the Midwest. Well, okay, you've got an abundance of them in the West Coast. Can they just work in projects in the Midwest, right? So it helps you balance your talent more. And then from a learning perspective, it helps me say, okay, you know what? We already have a plethora of those skills. Is that the right place to invest in them?
Just one final comment, Marianne talked about bringing in Burning Glass and Gordon talked about the IBM Connexa. I think this also begs the question of technology, right? Like, do you just buy a framework that's out there and plug it in versus does your organization truly need to start from scratch?
I think a lot of what the volume of numbers and all that kind of thing, it's the 80-20 rule applies in so many contexts around the skills discussion. Focus on the fewest number of skills that have the biggest impact. If it's something off the shelf, whether it's the IBM framework or Lightcast or something can get you going, start. The number of the kind of bullets of pearls of wisdom that we had, that the first word was start. That's the thing, start. And in the chat, know that it's iterative. You are going to evolve whatever it is you buy off the shelf. So buy and build is better than just buy and trust that that's accurate.
Close things out by talking about change management.
Yeah, hi, Giovanni, it's Mary Pat. I would just second that. And at CNA, we're starting with our leaders. We've engaged them throughout our skill development process and to help to inform definitions of what the skill means, what are examples of behaviors of those skills that we'd be looking to see on the job and applied. And then we're actually building a skills discovery questionnaire. Notice it's not a skill assessment. We're very intentional about our language to separate skill and employee development from performance management. So part of, change management is helping to make sure our employees and leaders understand that our efforts are all toward aligning to our business strategy and helping grow and develop our employees.